As there has been a few significant and rather dramatic gross blade failures with the Kershaw camp line, in addition to the heavy knot cutting that I've done in the last video, I'm also going to do some heavy splitting in this on some rather difficult pieces of wood to split. But before we get into anything heavy, a few easy splits. Now, I've done a few dozen or so pieces by about this time, and I have to switch over to using a heavy padded glove, and I lose my first baton right there as it starts to crack, because the vibrations through this handle are really heavy. And I need the padded glove to even be able to hold on to the handle of the blade. Now, you always get a couple of people saying, hey, well, I read or I heard or someone told me that you're supposed to keep the handle straight. How come you're not doing that? It's impossible. The amount of force that I need to use, there goes my second baton, to drive this blade through this knotty wood, and there's a problem which I'll talk about later. So the amount of force that I'm having to hit the blade with to drive it through this knotty wood is so great that I can't put enough force down on the handle to keep the blade straight, so it's simply tilting down into the wood, and I'm having to do this, which is far less than ideal, but will still work. One small point I'd like to make is you have to be able to hit the blade hard enough to drive it significantly into the wood. It might seem like that's a bit sort of paradoxical, but if you try to hit the blade lighter, the vibrations and shock actually get heavier because you're not actually splitting the wood, so the blade, and again, that's a bit of a problem. I'll talk about that later. So again, you have to hit the blade hard enough to drive it significantly into the wood and split it. If you don't, all the energy of the impact just goes into making the blade sort of vibrate. So that's why I'm having to use very, very heavy batons in the splitting, because this wood is just knotty and very difficult to split. And you have to be able to hit it hard enough, otherwise nothing happens and it gets just insanely uncomfortable. And this knife is bad enough as it is. Now, this is one of the last pieces that I did, and with this one, even using a heavier baton, I still wasn't able to make much progress because I was getting too much movement off of the actual block I was using. So I had to switch over to putting it on the ground to even be able to drive the knife into the wood. Again, this is really hard wood, it's full of knots, and it's very difficult to make progress. But again, I'm doing this just to check on the durability, because there have been some concerns with other knives in the camp line. And I have to switch over here to a heavier baton again, just to be able to drive the knife into the wood. So I checked the blade, looks fine. No twists, no warps, no edge rolls. However, I notice those few little impacts with the handle stripped off that Kraton rubber coating almost immediately.